Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Zareth Prevails, a Grand Arena story. Hey folks, just wanted to give you a quick note. I've already recorded the full audio for this video and I'm inserting this current soundbite because I wanted to let you guys know that things have changed just a tiny bit. This entire video was recorded assuming that I wasn't going to be able to show you guys my defenses at the end because of the holiday, and that's actually changed. The nature of my holiday has changed dramatically due to a kid throwing up in my car, and he's doing fine, but we needed to get home, and so I can actually edit in my defenses as well. So that's what I'm going to do. So at the end, after I've signed off and everything, I'm not going to edit anything of the initial recording, but after I've signed off, you can see my defenses, and I'll have some audio in there as well. So just stay tuned for that if you're curious or you want to see what's going on with my defenses, how I held up, and what the results are. And anyways, enjoy the rest of the show if you can. This is episode 9 from the current Grand Arena Championship 3, which means that we're in the final match of our third round in the Championship 3, and happy to say that I'm in the finals after beating General Skywalker team, which was a challenge, but got through it. And actually my opponent didn't clear my General Skywalker despite the fact that mine wasn't Relic 7 the way his was. So we are in the finals, and today's a little bit different just because I'm going to be showing you guys my match as far as my attacks go, but due to the holiday coming up, I'm not going to be able to show you guys my opponent's attacks on me, so I'll update you guys in the comments. And let's just jump in. So looking at the different stats, my opponent had a pretty obvious but really minor advantage in relics. Like they beat me out in almost all the different categories, but only by a couple, so not too bad. We were both at pretty much the same GP. I had a few more Zetas than he did, and our mods are actually like really close to each other. I have a slight advantage there. Our gear is also really similar. Like this is actually a really close match on paper at least. So let's looking at the stats here, my opponent has close to what I've done in Grand Arena. They haven't quite cleared as many teams or zones as I have, but definitely not someone to take lightly. They have more defensive wins than I do, which is not necessarily my favorite thing to see. So going into this match, I was glad to see that my opponent didn't have General Skywalker that geared up. Well, he was geared up, but he didn't have enough Zetas really to be a threat. So I knew I wouldn't really be seeing that. And you see that the front zone that I need to clear has General Grievous squad with Watt in it, and then a really fast Bounty Hunter squad. So I need to take those squads out first, of course. And then up top, we have a couple more good teams with ShaakT Clones with relics, and Nightsisters team also with relics. And all of these teams were just a little bit faster than I would have preferred, so it was going to be a good match.
Here's some money. Go see a Star War.
So moving into this match, I did not want to see that General Grievous squad with Watt, just because I haven't spent a lot of time kind of game planning for it. I didn't really have a great idea on how to beat it, and it had a lot of really high relics. It had a Relic 7 General Grievous, which was well modded, and it had a couple really high relic on B1 and B2. And Watt wasn't that high of gear, but he didn't really need to be. Those relics could really hurt. So, I had to beat this zone before I could see the next zone, and that meant that I couldn't use my Darth Revan team on it, which is really unfortunate because Darth Revan would have been able to take this squad out pretty quick, but that wasn't really an option because my opponent might have put their Darth Revan in the back, and I needed to one-shot every team if I possibly could. My opponent had a good enough record and a strong enough roster that I knew that I couldn't really afford much margin for error, and so I needed to save my Darth Revan to be able to counter their Darth Revan because I could do that. My Padme squad would be really questionable in that situation. They were pretty high relics on my opponent's Darth Revan team, and so decided I needed to make sure that I had my own Darth Revan team available. Now I could take Traya against this squad. You guys saw my Emperor Palpatine plus Traya counter last episode, which is pretty cool, but it didn't necessarily beat Watt with General Grievous. I wasn't really sure. I hadn't really figured it out that far. I haven't seen that counter, so I didn't really want to risk that, to be honest, because if I lost Traya, then I would lose one really good squad that I could probably use elsewhere. And so I was basically left with Jedi Revan there. I wasn't really sure. Everything else was kind of variable, as you can see on my chart. I won't spell it out for you guys, but I wasn't really sure. I needed to see what was in the back zone first. And because I did not want to give up my Darth Revan counter, which was, Darth Revan for me, that meant that I needed to use Jedi Revan. And after that, Jango bounty hunters could be taken out by my troopers. The Bosk was, I think, 338 speed, which is crazy, but my Stark outspeeds him by like 2 total, so probably be able to beat that. We'll see. I have to say, this is a really strange experience, talking about my match before I actually know the conclusion. I don't think I've ever done that at any point, and so I guess you guys will just have to bear with me. You have no choice. Or you can just exit out, which is also a choice, but I wouldn't recommend it because the following match is extremely close. It's really interesting in my opinion, and maybe I made some mistakes, so you guys can tell me about that. So first, Watt went and he put the taunt on B2, which I was expecting. And so I figured if I just put the mark on Watt, if I took him out, then he wouldn't be able to put any other tech on there. General Grievous would jump to a first turn pretty quick, but then the taunt would just hold until B2 just got taken out. And, I think I just misunderstood the Watt kit. I did look at it a lot, and it just said that it gives taunt to the tank until protection goes away. And the way I had interpreted that was, like, he would still need to take a turn until his taunt went away. And so his taunt did just disappear the second his protection went away, and I immediately realized that maybe I had made a pretty big mistake.
I've made a huge mistake.
But I didn't really have any recourse but to keep going. So just as an exclamation mark, I was beginning to, maybe not panic exactly, but I knew that I was going to struggle in this match from here out, because if B2 doesn't get taken out right away, he can really, really cause a lot of damage. He takes a ton of turns unless you're hitting him. And the problem is that Magna Guard is going to also be taunting at the same time. And that means that as I take out B2's protection, he's not going to be dead necessarily, and Magna Guard is still going to be there taunting. And so they'll kind of trade taunts. You see that the taunt just disappeared there, and Magna Guard is now taunting. And I can't do anything but hit him, and Jedi Revan is dead once again. He fell over, so not great. And now Grandmaster Yoda's gone, and it was starting to look like a pretty big fiasco. Luckily, I did take out Magna Guard, and Jolee was all alone, and he only had his assist ability to call, and so luckily he's Relic 4 and pretty resilient, so he's just summoned back all of the Jedi, and that's the mechanic that makes everyone hate facing Jedi Revan is really Jolee, because you're on the edge of victory, and then Jolee just says, maybe not, let's not do that. So lucky break there for me in some ways, though I am happy that I had the foresight at least to be able to put Relic 4 on Jolee, because I recognized that was important. However, time was starting to run down, and General Grievous was really starting to ramp up his damage. You guys will see some really crazy numbers in a little bit. But I needed to take out B2 first before I did anything else, and so that's exactly what I did. Finally took him out, and Hoda got taken out. Jedi Revan almost got taken out just by an AoE, and so now we're just trying to do as much damage as we can to Grievous and take him out, and it was pretty well in hand at this point, I thought. However, Hoda wasn't here. I still had a lot of different things that I needed to do, and Jolee luckily had his revive up once more, so he got that up. I did save my Grandmaster Yoda's special ability until General Grievous had a pretty good amount of turn meter on him, and that way I could reduce it and prevent him from taking a turn. And one thing I do want to point out here is that early on I recognized that Jolee was going to need to revive quite a bit, and so I put Grandmaster's Training on him second after I put it on Grandmaster Yoda, just because every time Jolee takes a basic, uses a basic, then he reduces his cooldowns, and so that meant that he'd be able to revive more often, and that really saved my bacon at some points here in this match. And you'll see that I'm really trying hard not to do any AoEs right now, because if I do an AoE, I will kill B1, and General Grievous is really doing a lot of damage. And he did one hit, one basic attack on Bastila, and just destroyed her from full health. And I feel like if he had done an AoE on me at this point, I might not survive. And so I'm really trying hard here to just avoid that. And finally I was able to take out Grievous. 22 seconds remaining and 55 banners, and I don't think I've ever been happier to get 55 banners. That was a really close match, right down to the wire. Really glad that I was able to beat that team in one hit. And I do want to take a moment to just throw all of my listeners or commenters under the bus and say that you guys are the reason that I took out Watt first, because you said you always have to hit him first before B2. Last time I faced the Grievous squad and lost. So I did what you said, took it to heart, and almost failed here. But I did get the win, so good for us, I suppose. So Stark went first, and you reduced some of the turn meter there. He gave everyone else turn meter on my team, which meant that Death Trooper was able to go next, and then Range went and buffed everyone else again, and we're just hitting the weakest target here. Weakest character got Death Mark on Bosk, and even though there was some pretty high level relics on Bosk and Jango, the squad just completely got demolished by my troopers just because I was a little bit faster. And if troopers have a sustained fight, they lose pretty quick, but that was a really strong bounty hunter team, and it would have been a huge pain with almost any team to take out without losing banners, except for with troopers. So go figure. In the back zone, my opponent did not have Darth Revan, which is great news, and no Geos either, which their Geos are really high relics, so happy with that. And so my Darth Revan was free to be able to counter whoever I wanted to, and I decided to counter this Nightsisters team. Now, I could have used Padme, but I wanted to use Padme against their Dooku team in the back. And I didn't use Malak here just because Malak would have been great. Of course, he's great in almost every circumstance with this Sith team. Yeah, but I did want to use him with Traya instead, because Traya really benefits from having him around. And, Darth Revan doesn't really need that to be able to counter this Nightsisters team, at least. And so, we're going undersize here just to work on that feat as well and try to gain a couple extra banners if possible. Now, I've had a lot of circumstances where I'm able to beat Nightsisters without losing, any banners. It's just a completely one-sided fight. Though I wonder how much Malak has played in that. I don't really remember the details of those matches, but 59 banners, pretty decent. I mean, I dropped protection on a couple guys, or maybe some health on one of them. I'm not sure, but took that out pretty quick and easy. Next up was ShaakT. I needed to get back to ships, so we're focusing on this zone here. And ShaakT is easily countered by Commander Luke with C-3PO, and decided to go with that. And I've been working on Old Ben a little bit, trying to get this counter up for General Skywalker, and just decided that instead I'd try to take R2-D2 just because I'd have a few higher stats. I'd be able to potentially get some evades going or something like that. I don't really know, but R2 is a decent add here. This is honestly kind of the quintessential Rebels team. And so you see I targeted ShaakT first, and she's the one who's giving out all of the different buffs to the clones, and some of them are from her leadership, and those don't go away, but the passive ones that you gain just from her being around, like having counter, for instance, are gone, which is huge. So took her out, and then Clone Sergeant did an AoE, and I just did counter and took him out. I didn't really have a chance to say no to that, which is just fine with me. take 5s out so that he doesn't buff the other 2 clones, and then take Rex out as quick as you can so he doesn't annihilate someone. And then there's Echo, of course, and I actually killed them all before I was able to regenerate all of my health and protection. So 55 banners, not what I was hoping for. I was really hoping for something like 57, or even something crazy like 60, but didn't happen. Multi-relic clone team, really fast. I was happy enough to walk away with 55, honestly. So I needed to take out this Carth Wampa team, and I had every confidence that my first order would be up to the task, but I've been really wanting to try this Emperor Palpatine team. It's not really anything fancy, honestly. It's just the standard Palpatine with Vader and Empire, with debuffs, and here I am just staring at the screen trying to decide whether I want to use my TIE Fighter pilot or Krennic. Or Shore Trooper. I mean, there's a lot of good options here, but I've seen a few different YouTube streamers use this to be able to counter Carth, and I wanted to try it out, so brought Thrawn in to be able to just fracture Wampa right away. And the reason for that is that once Wampa gets going and he does his AoE, all of my guys are going to be dazed. And this team relies on having high turn meter, or a lot of turn meter. So, before anything else happens, I just wanted to get Fracture off so that he couldn't do anything. And hopefully I'd be able to take him out before, he came out of Fracture. Not too hard to keep Fracture up while we're with Empire, and all of my teams have Empire. So took Mission out because she was the weakest, and I'm trying to get Shock off on Zalbar so that he can't gain buffs. Right now he has buff immunity, but you don't want him to shake that off eventually and be able to start taunting. And the key here, the hope is that your opponent just never takes a turn, because you're doing so much turn meter manipulation, and you have stuns and you have a bunch of other different control aspects. And I'm kind of out of practice with it. I'm not sure. I think that there's a couple things I could have done better here. Carth got his AoE off, and that's going to probably kill a bunch of my banners, which is unfortunate, but that's just how it works. So I took a basic with Thrawn there just because if he fractures, he's probably just going to hang out with Fracture for quite a long time, and I don't really want that. What I really want is to be able to regrow some of my protection, because you can see all my protection here. Thrawn has full protection, but all the rest of the team does not. And so if I could heal up that protection before I was able to take out Zalbar, then I'd probably be able to, I'd be able to maximize my banners. And, and the hope is to get 59 or 60 if possible, and I think that's actually pretty possible in this specific counter, but as it stands, I was just killing Zalbar off too fast. He wasn't gaining enough defense, unfortunately, so we did take him out, and 57 banners. I mean, it was a counter I wanted to try. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have done that in the finals, but 57, it is acceptable for the first try on a team. So in the back, my opponent had a Tarkin team with a bunch of Geos, and I later realized that I had failed in my scouting, and my opponent didn't even have Negotiator. They've been saving for Malevolence, which they do have now, which of course is not relevant for this match, but I probably should have put my defenses a little bit differently, just so that my opponent wouldn't have been able to get through my ships as easily. So I'll probably start working on that, but until then, I need to take out these bottom teams. And so I took a Padme squad undersize against this Nute team with Baze and Old Men. And it's actually a pretty complex team. I was really impressed with how strong it was. So, Droidica rolled up, and he immediately, put his defense thing up. His shield is, I guess, what it's called. And so I dispelled it with ShaakT. I thought I was being cool and clever. They'd be able to just take him out after that. And then Dooku went and stealthed everyone. And Jedi Anakin didn't necessarily like that, so he dispelled everything with his AoE. And at this point, like they're starting to hit me with a lot of different attacks that aren't doing a ton of damage, but Dooku does have relics on him, and he's starting to hit a lot. I did pay extortion every single time because when you're facing a Nute lead, he does extortion on you a lot, and if you have extortion on everyone, it can just melt your team. It really can. I've seen really strong counters to this team just melt to Nute's extortion. So, you'll see that I pay extortion almost every time. There may be an exception here or there, but, old Ben is taunting now, and this team is actually a lot harder to get through than I had originally thought. I have Relic 7 on Jedi Knight Anakin, and I figured that was probably going to be enough to see me through. But Dooku usually is taken out by now. Like, when I face this team, I always focus Dooku first, and I just haven't yet because I wanted to avoid the counters, which may be kind of a foolish sentiment, but that's what I was doing. That's where I am. So I did manage to take him out again, and 58 banners is just fine, honestly, against a Nute team that can really, if I'd used Traya there, I probably wouldn't have escaped with nearly that many banners. So happy that I had Padme available, and let's move on to our final squad match. So this team was actually a little more scary than usual just because they had a Relic L3, which is really resilient. I just recently put a Relic on her, and then it also has an R4 Nest.
Yeah, like anyone would want to R her.
So normally I would probably take First Order against this team. I've done it quite a few times, and you can get max banners against it. It's not super hard. I actually did it just recently in the territory war that I was in. But with the Relic 4 Nest, I just wasn't sure how survivable my First Order officer was going to be, and I wanted to make sure that I maximized my banners. And so, I decided I had Traya available, I had Malak available, like I could do a lot of cool things, and then I decided to just throw Watt in there just to see what he could do. I decided that, maybe he could give the weapons tech to Nihilus and kind of speed things along. And, and once I was able to annihilate Nest, then I'd probably just be able to pick these guys off piecemeal. And I'm still pretty new with using Watt on offense, and so I think there are a couple things that I can clean up in my next attempt, but that's just fine. So I put the weapons tech on Nihilus right away, and then Watt just got another turn because he's apparently the fastest on the board. And he put the taunt thing on Malak, which Malak is not taunting because he doesn't have any protection, so that was a huge fail on my end. Probably should have put that on Scion. But then no one's going to hit Malak, so I don't really know what the best solution in this specific circumstance is. Probably should have put the health and protection regen on, probably on Traya at first before that. So anyways, that will continue through, and so Watt did have the ability to put that on Traya, and he eventually did. I was trying to decide who to put it on, either Scion or Traya, and I decided Traya because Traya doesn't have any natural protection regen of her own, and Scion does with his special attack. So we're just skating through this match, and the first target always needs to be Vander Chewbacca. And, I'm just kind of biding my time, waiting for Nihilus to get his Annihilate up. And then, if we're going to take out Vander Chewbacca, probably Stormtrooper or Captain Han is probably going to just revive him anyways. And so, I was trying to make that not happen. I have Isolate on the L3, so no one's going to get in the way of me being able to hit any of the other characters that I want. Got Annihilate up, and of course Relic 4 Nest needed to disappear, so I did that. And at that point, there was never any question. I mean, there wasn't much question anyways that I'd be able to full clear these guys, but, there's just nothing on this team that actually does anything worth mentioning other than they revive each other, and it's annoying. But otherwise, there's not much to recommend this team. Captain Han did revive Vander, and then I just took Vander out again because that's where he belonged, was out. And now I'm just trying to, bide my time. I think I probably should have used Watt's special. I read it again after this match. I probably should have used Watt's special a little bit later so that I could have the protection regeneration ability up later on in the match so that, I'd be able to leisurely take out L3 and get all my protection back up. But as it stands, we're doing okay. And I decided to just use Annihilate here. If I had realized that Watt had that special that could, do protection, regeneration or whatever, I probably would have tried to draw it out. But as it stood, I got a pretty decent amount of banners against that squad, and all that remained was ships. So I jumped on in cavalierly and just decided to take my normal fleet lineup. One thing that I decided to do was, instead of taking Sunfac, because I don't really use him that much anyways, I decided to take Rex as one of my backups, just so that he could potentially regenerate some of my protection and, get me more banners. And so, we're jumping in with Negotiator, and, one thing that I'm realizing is that I'm always going to get fewer banners with Negotiator because he's only 5 stars, and so I'm going to get 3 fewer banners on offense, which is frustrating, just because I can't take as many reinforcements. But it is what it is. I'm going to look at that in between the next seasons, so we'll look into it. Anyways, did the AoE on Sunfac, tried to get a buff block on him, and it did not stick, so that was a little bit frustrating. And of course the other 2 are in stealth, and I was a little bit worried that they'd be able to start doing some serious damage to me. But then I realized that they all had days on them, or at least 2 of them did, and so after that everything started falling apart for them quite a bit. I took Plo in here. If I wanted to end the fight right away, I could have taken in 5s and maybe just one shot, but decided I wanted to take a little bit of time to try to get some of my health and protection all the way up. And to do that, of course, I just completely neglected doing that with Ahsoka. Ahsoka could have gotten her protection up. I don't actually know if she regenerates her protection. I'll have to look into that. But, then Plo went, and, I think that he actually could have helped regrow some protection as well, but instead he did his basic. And so, making a couple mistakes here, I did manage to get Rex in to be able to regenerate some protection, and I wasn't sure, because everyone had bonus protection, I wasn't sure which ship needed more bonus protection. But as things stood, I missed 2 banners. I could have gotten 63, got 61 instead. Good enough for me, and full clear without any failures at all. So, happy enough with that score. 19-16 against a really strong roster is nothing really to scoff at. And now we're waiting for my opponent to go. And we'll just see if they have the efficiency to be able to take me out. I doubt that I'm going to be able to hold. They do have a really strong Geonosian squad that they held on offense, and they also have a Gear 11 Jawa team. And, I was just fine with putting my Geonosians on there. I really hope that my opponent uses Geonosians, or rather their Jawas on my Geonosians, just because it's going to cost them quite a few banners, and that efficiency is really important. Even though I'm certain that my opponent's Jawas could take out my Geonosians, I really hope that they go for that. So looking forward to that. We'll see what ends up happening here. Who's going to prevail.
Hey, easy. Oh gee, who's gonna drop it? Will you or will he?
What? Be patient. We'll see. We'll see.
So I actually feel pretty reluctant to stop here, but I think that's what we're going to do. Normally I like to show you guys the results of my matches, but I will update my comment feed as soon as we have news of what happens. And, I just don't really have the capability of being able to do any of these videos at someone else's house, and I really didn't want to have to do this on the phone. So, we're doing just fine here. Everyone will be okay. We'll get through this together, and thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for our next and final round to see if we get into Qi'ra or not. And remember that in all things, Zareth prevails. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone, even if you don't celebrate it. Alright folks, as promised, here are the defenses for my team. So I'll show you the defenses first, and then I'll show you the final result. And my first zone that my opponent needed to get through was my Nightsisters that I'd split up with Separatists and Nute. They both got one shot, which was disappointing. Wanted to see another hold there. My Jango team did end up getting a hold. However, my opponent said that they had tried to go a little bit too efficient with their banners, tried to squeeze too much, and the Jango team took them by surprise, so happy news there. And then the bottom back zone also just got one shot. And then ships, I don't have a screenshot for that. For whatever reason, I forgot to do it. Also got one shot, so you know, it was kind of close. The Jango team really helped me out, and the final result was that I won by a pretty decent margin here. So pretty happy with that. I think even if my opponent hadn't failed against Jango, I still would have won from efficiency, so that's great news. And that means that I won my round, which is also good. And that means also, I think that means I've made Kyber already. Not to, you know, toot my horn too much or whatever. Not that I really have a horn, but I think that means that the race for Kyber is over, assuming that I can get mostly full clears from now on, even if I lose my next 3. And that's just because we're getting more of the rewards now. We get more reward banners for wins. And that's kind of disappointing because, you know, I would like a little bit of tension moving into this last round, but getting into Kyber is obviously awesome, and we'll see if I can get into like the top 200 or something like that. So anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'm gonna sign off for real this time. So please remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.